Hello friends, key events are approaching for our country, and they are coming not only from Washington, not only from the side of peace negotiations. Recently, two very important articles were published in the world press. More specifically, it was the British press. Now I'll tell you which one, which basically sheds light on many events, fully confirming my theories. And that terrible path that Ukraine was prepared for. And who and where, you'll understand at the end of this video. I'll start from the end. I'll start with Valery Zaluzhny. An article about him was published in the British Guardian, and this article, you know, is the kind that makes your hair stand on end. From this injustice, from this stupidity, and from this horror, still the horror for our Ukraine, yours and mine, I want to read out a few points and discuss them. Regarding the call from J.D. Vance, Vice President Vance's team tried to reach Zaluzhny through acquaintances, but he simply didn't pick up the phone, demonstratively refusing to make contact. Can you imagine? After the scandal in the Oval Office when Zelensky had a meltdown at Trump, J.D. Vance tried to reach Zaluzhny with the goal of removing, or rather, sidelining Zelensky from power. And they were planning to rely on Zaluzhny as the person who, unfortunately, has by far the highest presidential rating today, and Zaluzhny didn't pick up the phone. Do you know why? According to information reported by The Guardian, after first consulting, don't be surprised, with Yermak, let's analyze and run through this situation in our minds once again. In the Oval Office, Zelensky is causing a scandal, making a huge mistake, and then the Americans realize it's impossible to work with Zelensky anymore. He's not capable of making agreements. And in general, Zelensky being removed from power would be a big plus for us. They try to reach Zaluzhny in London, and of course, not knowing what to do, he starts consulting with Yermak. With Yermak, who despises him and refuses to take a call from the Vice President of the United States of America. Will America still do business with Zaluzhny after that? I want to address right away, without waiting for the end of the video, the people who think that there will be elections and we will vote for Zaluzhny. Stop voting for and falling in love with just anyone. Fall in love with and be interested in ideas. And please vote for ideas, otherwise, I tell you responsibly, there will simply be nothing left of Ukraine. With such figures, we continue to envision Ukraine in London. Zaluzhny stated that Ukraine must prepare for a long struggle through sweat and tears, following Israel's example, to live in constant mobilization, but with a strong economy and army. Let's break this down. Friends, in the last 3, 4, or 5 years, haven't Ukrainians shed enough sweat, tears, and blood? Some lost more, some less, some their lives. This war has killed. Subtitles. Putin for some, Zelensky for others. Wasn't that enough? Honestly, there's still no sign of elections. In Ukraine, the situation is terrible militarily, economically, and especially politically. And Zaluzhny says such nonsense on a cosmic scale. Believe me, it turns me inside out. Maybe history has given you this opportunity, you've been given such a rating, but we have some kind of curse in Ukraine. Whoever has a high rating always turns out to be some kind of madman. No offense, but that's exactly how it looks. I call that Zaluzhny. Consider everyone with a high rating in Ukraine's history. What did they do once in power? It's more than just a complete reversal. They didn't promise anything good. That's what's upsetting. Ukraine has never seen a decent president. He mentions Israel as an example, but I know Zaluzhny isn't very familiar with it. Well, let me tell you, Israel's gross domestic product per capita is 47, even more, $1,000 a year per person. Ukraine's gross domestic product per capita is $6,000. So what does that tell us? First of all, it says something about the economy. Secondly, each Israeli is, let's say, almost 8 times more productive than Ukrainians. You see, this indicator is actually a criterion for the standard of living in specific countries. You see, what we have is a catastrophe. The standard of living is incomparable. Zaluzhny says we'll be like Israel, with a strong economy. But why didn't Valery Fedorovich explain what a strong economy is or how to build it? What suggestions does he have about this? He doesn't know anything, he just put together some nice words. He thinks that now they'll suggest to him someone like Yulia Sviridenko, or maybe someone like Shmihal. He'll sit in the Prime Minister's chair, maybe with Poroshenko, and this so-called Poroshenko will build the economy for him, showing how it's done while Zaluzhny just dreams about it. And a strong professional contract army. Fine, no one denies that. As a specialist, he should have addressed this directly, not just used vague phrases. I've explained this countless times. Israel is a small country, but we have over 1,200 kilometers of shared border with Russia, which is unfriendly. Even if we take neutrality, you are in Israel, I've already said this. Just in case, for new people. By the way, if you're new, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and the bell. Have you ever seen corruption scandals in Israel about buying and selling weapons? There isn't any of that, none of it, but there's one very sneaky thing here. And the sneaky part is that once at some conference, this happened. I've mentioned this many times over the past year. Zaluzhny said that if there's a choice between democracy and, I think, the life of the country, he said it like that, then of course we will choose the latter. That was a question in the context of women's mobilization, like, well, if life forces us, then we'll carry out women's mobilization too. Do you really want that life, people? And do you think Ukraine could survive another war with leaders like these? Aren't you tired of sweat and tears? Don't you want an inspiring president who will talk to you not about sweat, blood and tears, which, as I said, we've already had enough of in our lives, but about happiness, well-being and the future? Maybe we should consider a president like that. If you think that's impossible in Ukraine, you're wrong. Ukraine could be one of Europe's best countries. I stand by my words and take responsibility, but that's Ukraine. It's a Ferrari that's being filled with 76-octane gasoline, some donkey urine, instead of the high-octane fuel it's meant for. That's how it happens. And you keep trying not only to choose this donkey urine as a fact, but also to consider it for the future. If we make this mistake now, it's the end of everything. Who is the curator of all this? You'll understand further on. So Zaluzhny, when comparing with Israel and using Israel as an example, for some reason cleverly takes only what is beneficial to him. But Israel, being in a state of war, let's say, also a full-scale one. They had complete freedom of speech, and for some reason, Netanyahu and the ministers and everyone else were not put on the scales there. Democracy or the country's fate? No, there's a war, but we have life here. We can manage. How will this affect us? Freedom of the press. Bloggers spoke out. People protested, and recently 100,000 marched against Netanyahu and the government. I've said many times they post insulting posters about Netanyahu. But Zaluzhny, that's not for us, that's aside. But this works for us, like Israel. Well, about the economy, you saw how he failed. Let's literally move on. Paul Manafort came, he's a well-known political strategist from Trump's team. Zaluzhny refused to meet with him, and that's it. Another notable visitor to Zaluzhny, according to the publication, was Andrei Yermak, head of the president's office. According to a Guardian source, at a meeting in November last year, Yermak offered Zaluzhny to officially join the president's political team to present a united front ahead of the upcoming elections. Can you imagine the disaster if that happens? Rumors on the streets said that Yermak offered him another $10 million as was reported, but Zaluzhny refused the offer. At the same time, sources say he promised Yermak not to publicly criticize Zelensky during the war and assured the presidential office there would be no unpleasant surprises. If I decide that I want to go into politics, you will hear it from me privately first. The publication quotes Zaluzhny as saying, to Yermak, the president's office tried to discredit Zaluzhny as much as possible. As far as I know, he is under house arrest, and his inner circle is literally intimidated by criminal cases, and the general is going through this fake one. The Military Medical Commission will reportedly declare him unfit. He goes to London and says everyone must drown in blood while he lives under different circumstances. His family too, and there are rumors about his brother. Well, he's not at the front. He's a person who is involved in politics. I'm not discussing military topics since I'm not an expert or a soldier, but he seems like a hero. If you see yourself as the nation's leader and consider politics, you must go, especially with strong public support. If Zaluzhny had been jailed, people would have freed him and destroyed the prison and his jailers. No, he just chickened out and is now singing along with Yermak, stepped aside, and is sitting quietly. Do you think a person like that will carry out reforms? That a person like that will bring the right people onto his team? No, he'll just choose. Like Zelensky, people who make things easy for him surround him and will end up repeating the same mistakes as always. But the main point is Zaluzhny isn't the president of the world. This is once again militarism, militarization and preparation for another war, which with such leaders will definitely happen within 50 years, 5-10 years after this war ends. Before that, there was an interview, a whole piece with Sternenko. Well, just for a second, The Times, you all know it's that publication. And here are 3 points that need to be discussed, which are related to the threat to Zelensky. Sternenko stated that if Zelensky gives up even a part of Donbass to Russia, he faces both political and physical demise. He called any possible retreat a bomb under sovereignty, categorically, without the slightest hint of compromise. So, Sternenko is threatening Zelensky. Well, not Sternenko personally, since he is a nobody by himself. This is all called the deep state. This is the globalists sending greetings to Zelensky, those who have taken control of Ukraine. Specifically, I think it's the British intelligence services, who are preparing to promote this military clique for this role, because of Zaluzhny, who oversees Sternenko's handlers. This is the deep state. It's all the deep state. And that's why something happened to Zelensky at one point. Already during his presidency, he completely changed, became this fake professional nationalist, and everything came to the point we have today. The next point is no concessions, only victory. Sternenko says peace is impossible now. Only Russia or Ukraine can win. He is convinced that Russia, as an empire, will not stop and will continue to seek expansion. That's why compromises are not functional. What has Sternenko done in this life? What has he accomplished in this life? Consider his background and geography so his words are valued. He hasn't even built doghouses, but Times is making a piece about him. Do you think he's interesting to Times, or did someone work to make sure this piece came out? Of course, he's just a talking head. It's a project that's being pushed. Please realize the horror of what's happening. And then there's the joke. The Federal Security Service tried to kill him again. The interview was released after another assassination attempt in May 2025 in Kiev, where a woman, likely following Federal Security Service orders, shot at Sternenko. He managed to survive, which he interprets as Russia is trying to kill me again, so I must be doing something right. You all saw it. To put it mildly, it looks very much like fake assassination attempts. He was shot in the butt, but his hand was bandaged. Overall, it's a funny, kind of comical video, but it's neither funny nor comical. We saw when a Secret Security Service of Ukraine officer was killed in Troyeshchina, just shot at point-blank range from close distance. And this, I would believe that the Federal Security Service does this. If they want to carry it out, that's how they do it. But if these are just fairy tales, then we see an attempt like the one on Sternenko or about Gordon. We're told that Putin sent 12 groups of elite killers. All of them were intercepted, and Dmytro Gordon, Putin's personal enemy, survived. Right now, the most important thing is that Britain is playing its own game. Britain has taken Ukraine under its wing, and, I have nothing against Britain or their prosperity. But I'm waiting for a different British government. The Reform United Kingdom Party should come to power. Britain should return to its roots, to democratic ones, and not to the horror it has come to now. But right now, it's not about Britain as such. I wish them happiness and good luck, just not at the expense of Ukraine, please. Not at the expense of Ukraine, not on the blood of Ukraine, not using Ukraine as a proxy. But I want to address you for another reason. After hearing this, you see that without United States help, President Trump and hopefully the next Republican president, maybe even Vice President J.D. Vance, it wouldn't be possible. We won't succeed without it. We need to hold democratic elections under United States supervision. We need a pro-American capitalist president and furthermore, a libertarian. Ideally, Ukraine needs reforms. Ukraine needs to get rid of the deep state. We should forget all that like a bad dream. No Zelensky, no Zaluzhny, no Poroshenko, because Porokobots are already spreading the idea. Zaluzhny as president, Poroshenko as prime minister. No one will return to such a Ukraine. I love Ukraine very much. I want to return. I am ready to do a lot for Ukraine, but this is a reset. There is no chance, you understand, no chance. And if the majority decides that this is what suits them, then of course I will step aside. If you want to bury yourselves in this swamp and drag others in, even aggressively, when someone offers to help, go ahead. It's a real shame, of course, that such a magnificent, promising country is simply dying before our eyes, and just because of such foolishness. Trump critics, reconsider your stance on him and your Soviet-style view of the United States. We should be allies with America. What Zaluzhny doesn't get, he's a war hawk under other war hawks, is that he doesn't respect the United States. He doesn't understand what Ukraine needs. They all want war, but I say that Ukraine needs neutrality. Stop the persecution of the Russian language. And I'm not on Putin's side. I'm against Putin. That's called democracy. I stand for democracy. Likely only a territorial compromise is possible. But that's not on my conscience, if it happens. It's on the conscience of the one who led to this situation, namely Zelensky, possibly also Zaluzhny, but definitely Zelensky and Yermak. I'm not a judge for Zaluzhny militarily, but politically I am. This rating must collapse. This rating must collapse. I hope the scary 30% drops to 15 by year's end, especially with articles like these. I just don't believe that most of my fellow citizens want war for Ukraine, want this stupid militarism, want militarization. I'm telling you again, people, if you want happiness, a peaceful life, a future, think about such candidates. Please stop thinking that they already exist somewhere in the political field right now. That can't be, I don't want to sound patronizing, don't get me wrong, but that just can't be. Then there is no political process in Ukraine. Zelensky has created a dictatorship. He's even threatened Hungary, smiling as he says, I'll bomb this oil pipeline for you. Hungary, a NATO and European Union member, is a neighboring country. The new president should build, yes, neutral relations with all neighbors, with Russia, maybe also neutral with Belarus, and friendly relations with all the others. Overall, Ukraine should be a neutral country militarily, like Austria. But armed neutrality, with a professional army, cooperation with NATO, with the United States of America, separately with Israel, close military cooperation, yes, of course, but neutral, not getting involved in any conflicts. Ukraine is a bridge country, a magnificent trading platform. We need economic goals. Zaluzhny's claims are just fairy tales. He doesn't know what he's talking about. If there is a great economy, if the country is headed in the right direction, there will be maximum levels of freedom. And then something about security guarantees came to mind. We need to bring Elon Musk and people like him to Ukraine. Him, first of all, give him any conditions at all. The president just needs to invite him to Kyiv and sit him down. Tell him what you need to build several factories here. Just tell me what to do. I'll do it now. We're starting this project and his power plants are being built. All of these, everything in the world, and this will be a better guarantee of security than anything else. These papers that they're going to write now, of course, look nice, but no one is going to follow them, that's obvious. But no one is going to launch missiles at American property, at American businesses, specifically at Elon Musk. Because he has such media and financial resources that he can crash entire economies, overthrow entire regimes, and so on and so forth. This is the concept that I'm proposing. No one else says this. You just hear things like Sternenko victory. But how is that victory? With 140 million people and 5,000 or 6,000 nuclear warheads, what kind of victory is that? They fought nearly 4 years without declaring a general mobilization, while Ukraine is already collapsing with kilometer-long cemeteries. And he's talking about victory while sitting it out, having built a business on donations. He hasn't contributed to the war, only blogs and tells others to fight while he doesn't. That's just me talking. Why pay attention to a talking head? But this is the times, my friends. Just consider how bad things have gotten. Sternenko is published in the Times because someone needs it. Both publications, The Guardian and The Times, British ones. That's who took Ukraine under their control. The United States is now calling Farage to Congress, and most likely the future British Prime Ministers will talk to him, because there is pressure on freedom of speech in Britain. It's a nightmare in Britain. Beyond Islamization, it needs renewal and is under the influence of the United States. If all goes well, God willing, this burden will be lifted from Ukraine, though intelligence services there often act independently from politics. Otherwise, we will simply perish as a country. Please think about it, friends. Share this video if you understood its message with your friends and relatives. Let them watch it. Analyze this horror, and please, most importantly, no militarism, no war hawks. Ukraine needs peace, prosperity, happiness, and a future, achievable only through neutrality. Please subscribe to the channel, like, and comment. Your opinion is very important. I'll be responding, so write in the comments. See you.